Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and Master Certified Life Coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today's episode is all about the Ethel from AARP, an initiative that's giving a voice to women over 50 to navigate loneliness. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your Master Certified Coach and Midlife Mentor, and I am so glad to be here with you again for this week's episode. Today, we're talking about loneliness. It turns out that this is a super common experience for older women. As I'm sure you can imagine, not connecting with other people is harmful in so many ways. So we're going to talk about this today. We're going to talk about what's going on with loneliness and specifically what AARP is doing to empower women to create meaningful friendships, share experiences, and build supportive communities across the country. But just quick, before we dive in, I have a question for you. Did you know that midlife transformation coaching can be the fastest way to rediscover joy and purpose after 50? Are you ready to do some reimagining and challenge yourself to think differently about what is really possible for you? No matter how long you felt stuck, you can gain clarity about your next chapter and make it fun and exciting too. Grab this free guide called 10 Questions to Reimagine Your Life After 50. It will help you discover how to be happier, create more confidence, and finally find yourself again. So if you're ready to get unstuck and enjoy the gift of aging more, these 10 questions are your golden ticket. Head over to www.susierosenstein.com/10 questions and get them today. Okay, now let me tell you about my amazing guests. As I mentioned, loneliness is a common experience for older women, and it really is a big deal because it can be related to mental health, physical health, and overall well-being. Today's interview is with two women who are involved with AARP's Ethel Gathering Groups, an initiative that is working well to help women over 50 navigate loneliness. Lisa Marcellino, who, after facing isolation following her divorce and while caregiving for her parents, found a powerful sense of connection and lifelong friendships in her 60s through AARP's Ethel Gathering Groups. She's a living example of how it's never too late to create meaningful relationships. In this conversation, we're going to explore how Lisa overcame loneliness and the impact of community as she navigated this chapter of life. We're also joined by Shelley Emling, Editor-in-Chief of the Ethel Circle at AARP, who offers expert insights into the loneliness epidemic among older women and explains how programs like AARP's Ethel Gathering Groups are making a difference in combating this issue. Now, without further ado, please enjoy this interview. Hi, Shelley and Lisa. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Women in the Middle podcast. I was so excited to have you both on to have a really important conversation about loneliness and isolation in midlife and beyond, and what we can do about it.
So glad to be here, Susie. Yes.
Awesome. So with two of you here, we're going to do our best to go back and forth a little bit. So let's start with Lisa. Can you please tell us a little bit about what was going on for you and how you found the Ethel Gathering Groups? Let's start there.
Okay, let's see. I'm 7 years into a divorce, a heartbreaking divorce after 34 years of marriage. And I didn't know what was going to happen next. So I tried to stay in Cincinnati on my own, and it was during COVID, so it was kind of hard. Decided to move back to Louisville, which is where my parents and a lot of friends are still. So I moved back and asked my parents if I could stay a couple months. My mother fell during that time. So I ended up staying. Well, I'm working on my 7th year. So I'm still at my parents' home in my old bedroom and have become a caregiver. So in the meantime, when I first moved home, although I had lots of friends in the area, it was hard to get out because of my mom being so frail and not being able to leave her. I had vented to a couple of girlfriends, and one of my friends said she had heard about this Facebook page called the Ethel Circle. I decided to check it out, and it was really fun. There were a lot of stories about, when did, it get so hard to get in and out of the car? Or when did it, get so hard to get a group together because people can't drive at night and all those kinds of things. So it was kind of familiar, and it was silly, and even more comforting to know that I wasn't alone, because those were kind of the same things I was going through. And a lot of people on there were caregivers. So it was kind of good to have a place to vocalize some of those feelings. Anyway, at one point, I saw somebody trying to get a group together, like Shelley had told me about the Ethel gathering group. So she said that there's people that gather in different states and different cities. And so I thought, I can do this. So I just put out there, does anybody in Louisville want to get together for lunch? And there were several that said they did, and I didn't know how to manage it. So I started my own little page to get them to RSVP. And the first time we got together, there were 6 of us, and it was really fun. And we all thought it was so easy to talk and get to know each other. We had so much more in common than we thought. So we decided to do it again the next month. And then more people came and more people came. And I am a meeting planner, event planner by trade. So it kind of felt good to be able to do that, even if it was on a smaller level. And I started to get into it, like, let's plan it now and get the dates. And now we routinely have 25 to 30 at our monthly lunches. And we've started a couple offshoot groups, but we also do other things. We paint pottery. We just take walks together and have lunches and picnics and things like that. So it's been fun. It's great. I try to get some of them more involved in organizing, because it gets a little hairy sometimes, but it's getting, better. They're more comfortable planning on their own too. And sometimes Lisa, I can't be there, so they're able to do that.
There are so many parts of this little story that really struck me. And the first one is that you're back in your bedroom. Can we just talk about that for a second? Because I've heard this before. And what was it like for you realizing that yes, this is what's happening? You're going back to your bedroom.
Well, I had a lot of things in storage. And so when I moved in with my parents, I decided that if I was going to stay here longer than 2 or 3 months that I thought it was going to be, I wanted to make it more familiar. So I forgot that the room was still fairly small, because when I was younger, it seemed like a great room. But since I grew up, I had a lot more furniture and a lot more stuff. So fortunately, I have a wonderful brother and brother-in-law that were able to help me get some of my things out of storage and make it more my own. I still had, things on the walls that were my parents' things for their guest room. So we did switch things out, new pictures, and it's very cozy. It's my space. My parents are so kind, and they always say, this is your house. This is your house. But it's really not. I still keep my space, and I enjoy going to my space, but it is cozy. And it was interesting because I realized at one point, I'm in my old bedroom, like it's come full circle. And my parents have a wonderful home for aging. So it's good on all fronts for all of us.
That's
I didn't think
wonderful.
It was going to be quite this long.
Right. No, I hear you. And just tell me, were your high school scrapbooks still in the closet?
My report cards were. And actually, they were in the basement storage area. In one section, there was Lisa. Another section was my other brother. And we all have our own sections in the basement that my mother has held on to in case we ever wanted it.
That's lovely.
So, yes.
That's inquiring minds wanted to know. I just wanted to know if your high school stuff was still there. Okay, so then the other thing that really strikes me is that you just couldn't resist being a meeting planner. Like if you were on a deserted island, you'd probably be a meeting planner, right?
Well, it might happen if there were a couple other people to hang out with. Yes, that is my love. I love to entertain. I love the accolades that it brings. And it's one of my, I don't know if that's a strength or a weakness, but I do like what follows when you have a successful event. And it made me feel good that people were interested in this and they were having fun and they thought that I was the queen of all things, Ethel. So, fortunately,
I love it.
The Ethel Circle did help us with a lot of, as we got bigger, they were able to help us with, Facebook, because I'm still a little bit, I'm better than I used to be, but I'm not quite as savvy on Facebook, and that all of our generation seems to be living right now. So
Yeah.
they helped us planning and, let us know. They branded us and made the gathering group so much more approachable, I guess.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's a perfect segue to Shelley. Shelley, tell us a little bit about what is happening with all things the Ethel group. What's going on?
So it all started, we did some research a couple years ago with the University of Michigan that found that 1 in 3 adults 50 to 80 say that they're lonely or they have experienced social isolation. And many of them said that they have no contact with another human being for a week or more. And it's especially prominent among women 60 plus, I would say. So we wanted to do something just for older women. And so in August of 2020, it all started with the launch of the free weekly Ethel newsletter that goes out to older women. It has a couple 100,000 subscribers now. And all the articles are written by women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that's our audience, women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. So alongside the newsletter, I launched the public Ethel Facebook page. And as you know, a public Facebook page means only I can post as the administrator, that women themselves cannot post. They just respond to me. And it became apparent pretty quickly that they really wanted to put up their own posts, and they wanted to have a voice, and they wanted to have a safe space. So about 2 years ago, I launched the Ethel Circle, and as a closed Facebook group for older women. And that allowed the women to put up their own posts, which they did. And in the first 24 hours with no marketing, I think I had 1,000 women join. And now there are about 100,000 members of this closed Facebook group.
I can't even, like, you tapped a need like there's no tomorrow. And Facebook, the older women love Facebook.
They do. We are meeting them where they are on Facebook. And what happened is after I launched the circle, within a couple months, I guess, I started noticing that women were putting up posts saying, hey, I live in Atlanta. Does anybody else live in Atlanta? I live in Miami. Anybody in Miami? And then people would respond, and then they'd say, let's get together for coffee or walks. And I soon discovered through many of the posts how lonely these older women are and have been, especially since I think the pandemic only made it worse. And so we decided to launch a formal Ethel Gathering Group program a little over a year ago, through which we set up closed Facebook groups for women in cities and towns around the country. And right now we're in 45 states and plus the Washington, D.C. as well. And some groups, like there's a group in Connecticut that has, I think, almost 1,000 members of that gathering group. There are over 31 or 32,000 women now in their town's gathering group, and they're hosting thousands of events.
I can't even. I'm speechless, which is not good on a podcast. But that's remarkable. So what, like, I want to give you credit too, Shelley, because for you to recognize what was going on and take action immediately that really helped grow this service and resource for people who were ready to jump and really needed support. Like, that's something. It must have been kind of surprising for you as a professional.
It was, because originally I thought we'd be talking about things like, what neck cream do you use, or what's your favorite recipe when you're cooking for one, those sorts of things. And that's certainly a part of it. What I did not expect and what really caught me off guard is how lonely a lot of these women are. And it's due to a number of things. A lot of them, are divorced. A lot of them are widowed. A lot of them are estranged from their grown children. A lot of them have moved and downsized to a new town where they know no one. A lot of them have retired and they're bored and they lost their coworkers as kind of their, friendship group. And I always say the women in the Ethels are looking for purpose, people, and play. That's what they all seem to have in common. And many of them feel invisible as they age, especially as they get over 60 and into their 70s and 80s. And they're they're bored. A lot of them, frankly, are bored after retiring. And so they're certainly seeking out other women to do things with. And as Lisa mentioned, many of these local gathering groups have offshoots, like a crafting club or a book club or a hiking club. And they're doing all sorts of things together. And many of them, Lisa failed to mention that she often says that she thought she was too old to make new friends. but she was not. And she has made many, many new friends in Kentucky now because of the Ethel Gathering group.
Wow.
Very true.
Wow. Lisa, why did you think you were too old to make new friends? Is it that you hadn't made new friends in quite some time, or what led to that?
Well, I think we were in Cincinnati for 30 years. So I had a circle of friends that I enjoyed and, always met people when I went to social gatherings, but they weren't like real close friends or anything. And when my husband decided that marriage was over, our only child, wanted me to move to Pittsburgh, which is where she's located. And the first thing I said was, oh my gosh, I am way too old to start over and make new friends. And I knew socially that I could probably do it, but I just didn't know if I had the energy because I was very sad. And COVID was just, keeping me homebound more. And so I told her, as much as I love it and I love to be with my grandchildren, there was no way I could just go up there and start over. Because at this point, I feel like I needed my friends, wherever they were going to be located. I need to have easy access. So once I tried it on my own in Cincinnati and decided it was too lonely, when I moved back to Louisville, I knew I had connections. I just had to work on trying to get to them. And a lot of them are still married and they're traveling with their husbands and doing that kind of thing. So it's just not as easy. And I have to plan, for someone to be available for my mom and dad if I'm going to go somewhere. So takes a little more energy. But now they know that this particular time of the month, I'm going to be gone. It's my lunch. I have the babysitter scheduled for those days. And then, it's kind of become part of their routine too. They always want to know if I'm going out with the Ethels or if it's, somebody else that I'm going to be meeting. But it made a big difference for me when I did realize that you don't have to be somebody to travel with or, go over there and spend every waking moment with them to have a friend. So when I met these women, and they're all in different phases of life, some have never been married, some, recently widowed or divorced, like Shelley was mentioning, but they all have one thing in common. They want to vent about something. And it's always really fun because sometimes it's just about the pool wasn't open and it was such a hot day. And I can't believe that, they didn't open it yet. And those kinds of silly things to, I'm going to have a biopsy on Saturday and I just need everybody's prayers and that kind of thing. And there's a couple of women that I actually have traveled with and have done some fun things with because they are so kind. And we just connected. There was a show a long time ago called Ally McBeal. And when she would say something that she wanted to take back, her tongue would go out and it would roll back. And that's kind of how I feel. Like I wish I could take that back because I would never want anybody to think that, oh, you're too old to make new friends, because I do truly have new friends. And it's nice to have the circle.
I love that you realized that your thinking needed a tweak. I mean,
absolutely.
I think that's the important thing to take away from it because you're not the only one who thinks that way. In my community, a lot of people join the Women in the Middle Academy for the same reason. They're looking for support, connection, and friends. And we just don't have the kinds of friends, many of us, that we thought we would have at this age and stage. And it's just a matter of putting yourself out there and making it a priority, which is what you did. And it's funny to me, and maybe people listening too, that you had this events background, yet you still had this idea that it was going to be challenging and it may be too much for you at this age. So even though you had the social skills, you still were a little hesitant.
Right. Well, I mean, you never know. I always used to reflect to an episode of Mary Tyler Moore where she planned a party and no one showed up. And so I've said, I hope it's not a Mary Tyler Moore party because that is the fear, and the fear, or that people will say, you're weird, for doing this. Or how could you do this with strangers? But it wasn't that way at all. And then as it's grown, the people are like, I can't believe I didn't know about this group. It's been so much fun. And, they're coming up with different ideas, and it's making me feel like I maybe have opened the door for some of them. And that is going back to I need the accolades kind of thing. That's kind of where I am, like that. I don't do it for that reason, but it makes me feel so good. And even though it was maybe challenging to get to that point because nobody could watch my mom or whatever, it worked out. And so that it makes it worth it for me.
Right. So what you touched on is this fear of not belonging.
Right.
Right.
Well, and when a lot of people get divorced, the friendships change, because it depends on, I guess, who brought the friendship into the relationship, because a lot of our friends were mutual friends that we had met either through church or through other friends. And so they didn't know how to react. I think people were shocked that we were getting divorced because we just did a lot together and we had a good life. And so when that happened, I think people didn't know how to react. And there certainly were people that were very supportive and loving, but there's some that just didn't reach out at all. Or I thought we were better friends, that you would have told me something was going on, or whatever it happened to be. And so they disconnected. And that's, I guess, what kind of brought in some of the fear and concern for me. How am I going to be accepted as just Lisa? No more husband or partner. So, and then I thought about all those things that you think about. Is this the way it's going to be the rest of my life? Just Lisa, and, just take care of mom and dad. And how long does this happen? So I do think you have to make your own fun. As one of my mottos, you can't wait around for people to reach out to you. You have to do it sometimes. And so that's part of what motivated me after a little while of thinking, you're going to have to change your ways.
So good, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's very personal. And you have made a huge contribution to the Ethels. Shelley, what else are you finding? I'm looking at some of these stats that you shared, and one of them is that 2 in 5, 40% women, 60 and older, report that it's difficult to make new friends. And that's actually from AARP research. So why do you think that they find it difficult? What are they sharing with you?
I think a lot of them are afraid of stepping outside their comfort zone, which maybe Lisa felt at the beginning. I have to say that I moved about a year and a half ago to a new town in the Catskills in New York State, where I know no one, with my husband, though he's here. But I didn't know anybody either. And it is kind of scary to put yourself out there. But an Ethel group did form in my area. And so through that, I organized a lunch. And like Lisa, I thought nobody's going to show up probably. And then 12 women came, and none of us had met each other before. We were all strangers, but we all left as friends. And so for me personally, I love the way that these older women are putting themselves out there. They are just walking into a restaurant and not knowing who you're going to meet and where the Ethels are. Where's this group? It's scary. And it's really, you have to step outside your comfort zone to do it. And so a lot of the women tell me that they sit in the parking lot for a while at the restaurant contemplating, should I go home or should I walk in the door? And finally they decide to walk in the door, and they're so glad that they did. But I've had many women post in the Ethel Circle that they've, lost a spouse, friends have died. Many of these women, like I said, are in their 70s and 80s. They lost their best friend. And I had one woman write that she was turning 70, and she said, I'm once again celebrating my birthday by myself. She said, I'm always alone on my birthday. My best friend died a number of years ago. And within about, half an hour, 900 women commented on that post. And they said, where do you live? And this woman was in Atlanta. And they said, DM me your address. We want to come by with a card or a balloon or a cupcake. And they did. And the next morning she posted, I'm sitting here with tears streaming down my face. I have never had anybody celebrate my birthday in this way. I feel so supported. So that just touched me so much, how supportive these women are of each other. And, as I said before, they are in this situation for a variety of reasons. Like Lisa said, she moved back home to care for her parents during the pandemic. Many of the women, as I said, are retired and lost that social circle at work. And they've also lost kind of that sense of purpose that they had going to work every day. They're kind of floundering at home, not really knowing how to fill their time. And the Ethels, through the Ethel Circle, they are making friends. They're feeling supported. Many women write, I just lost my husband 6 months ago. I'm not over it. I'm grieving more now than I was, at the beginning. Is that normal? And people will say, yes, I feel the same way. And they also post extremely, as Lisa knows, extremely personal other types of posts. Many say, I've been married for 40 years and my husband no longer finds me attractive. Or somebody else will post, I haven't had sex in 20 years. Is that normal? I mean, it runs the gamut, but they really share their innermost problems, and they feel that the Ethel Circle is a safe space for them to do so. And, there will never be a post or a question that goes up that doesn't get dozens of comments or reactions.
Well, Shelley, you made me cry. And that story with those 900 responses and women dropping things off. Oh my goodness.
Yes. It really
You're doing amazing work. The other thing that really strikes me is that this is in-person stuff as well as online stuff. And especially post-COVID, it is such a noticeable thing how different those experiences are. I think before COVID, we kind of appreciated, okay, Zoom, it is great. And Zoom is great, right? But it's so different than when you can actually hug somebody.
Right. And that's what I found in the circle. Like I said, I thought that they would just be sharing online and that's all it would be, which is something. It's a big deal. But I did not know that it would grow to 100,000 women and that they would crave in-person meetups like they have. And that really surprised me. And, I was glad to see it. It really touched me. And, like I said, thousands of events have been planned and it's really great to see.
Well, I hear you. It surprised me too that the in-person part of your Ethel experience, because here I'm 61 and a half and I sometimes just do not want to leave my house.
You sound like me.
And I always have a good time when I do, even at the grocery store. But I really feel sometimes it's like, and I have a big dog who's like a baby and just getting him ready so I can leave for a few hours. I know it's nothing that complicated, but it's really I worry about him a lot. Let's just say that. So this in-person stuff is just such a fun part of your story. It was very unexpected, for me to read that. Where did the whole idea for Ethel gathering groups, where did it come from?
So the idea for the Ethel came from Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, who founded AARP in 1958. She was a very inspiring woman. She was all about easing social isolation and helping people and advocating for people 50 plus. And, she founded AARP, like I said, 1958. So we really are inspired by her. We look to her as our kind of guiding light. And she was all about bringing older people together, especially women. And so that's why we decided to call the newsletter that we launched for women 60 plus the Ethel. And then there's all these offshoots of it. And I did want to mention one other thing, that there's another close Facebook group called the Ethel on the Go, which has about 38,000 women in it, older women. And it's for older women who like to travel. And what that group has done, I've noticed. Yes, it's excellent. And a lot of these women they've lost their partner or their partner's too old to travel, or they haven't really put themselves out there to travel in many, many years. And so they go into the group and they get find support from other women. And I've had so many older women say, thanks to this group, I'm taking my first trip ever by myself overseas. I'm going to London next month. And everybody will say, congratulations. We're so happy for you. Or they'll say, does anybody want to take a trip with me? I'm scared to go on my own. Does somebody want to go for an overnight to Savannah? And then somebody will say, yes, I'd love that. So I'm also finding that a lot of these women are finding their footing for the first time in years because they feel so supported by other women. And like I said, taking trips for the first time by themselves. I've noticed a lot of that happening in the Ethel on the Go. And I think Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus would be thrilled. She's long gone now, but I think that she would be overjoyed to see what's happening with all things Ethel.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. I hear about that a lot too, working in the women 50 plus space, about the fear of just traveling alone. And so many don't feel that they have options to travel with people. So that is amazing that there's a safe group ready to go. Another thing that comes to mind is the whole blue zones thing where, blue zones, if you're not familiar, it's these areas in the world where an abnormal amount of people are living over 100. And one of the things they comment on is they don't have the loneliness that we have so much in our culture in North America. What have you noticed about that, Shelley?
Well, as you know, the Surgeon General, I believe it was 2023, he declared loneliness in the United States to be an epidemic. And he equated it with it can really damage your health. He said that being lonely is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Or it also, another stat, takes 15 years off your life if you're socially isolated. And so that research really helped move us to launch the Ethel because we wanted to do something about that. But it impacts your blood pressure. It impacts, all sorts of diseases, and it has so many health repercussions if you're isolated. So that's why it's so important, especially as you grow older, to stay engaged, put yourself out there, find friends, find a supportive community that you can be a part of. And as you said earlier, that sense of belonging is so important. I said the women are all looking for people, purpose, and play, but they're also looking for that sense of belonging to a group. They love it. They love being part of the Ethel.
Right. And it's something you have to nurture, right? If you're thinking, oh, I need to have enough friends by the time I'm 70 or when I'm 70 or when I retire, well, those friends aren't just going to come out of the air. You got to start putting yourself out there. And if you want to make more friends, it needs to be a priority. And as little things like even just smiling more when you're out and about are things that can encourage conversation. And you know what I mean? Like sometimes when you're just not in a good mood, you're not going to meet people if you're feeling like that. What have you noticed? What kind of tips do you offer people about how they can be a little bit more social, even with the Ethel groups when they're meeting all these new people? They may not be familiar to meeting this many people.
I would say that I often tell them that there's been research done, like you said, these interactions we have throughout the day, just with the postman, the UPS guy, and the cashier at the grocery store, that even if you strike up a conversation with those people that may not be friends, but they're just in your life for whatever reason, that makes a huge impact on your health and your mental state. And so I tell people, start with that. If you're afraid, strike up a conversation with the cashier or somebody and, get that going. And then I just say often people, they get nervous and they'll post anonymously in the Ethel Circle, which I allow and I approve those posts. And they'll put up something anonymously, like they're embarrassed to say, I'm lonely, I'm looking for friends. And I try to send them a message on Facebook and say, hey, you're not alone. Like everybody feels this way at some point in their lives. And just don't be afraid to ask somebody for a cup of coffee, to have a cup of coffee with you or a meal. And maybe you'll make a friend. Maybe you won't, but you'll never know unless you put yourself out there.
Such good advice. And I was just chatting with the cashier yesterday, and I was so glad I did. And I used to find that automatically I would think, I'm too busy. I just need to hurry up. I just need to rush. I need to get out of here. My errands are taking too long. Those kinds of thoughts. And really, it doesn't take that long. It could be an extra minute to just have a little chit chat with somebody. And it's the same skills. It's the same skills of talking to somebody in a checkout line as it is to talking to somebody at a group dinner where you don't know people, right?
Yeah. And what we also do is that everybody that raises their hand to oversee a group in one of these towns or cities around the country, we send them a kit, an Ethel organizer kit. And in that kit are conversation starters. And so they can use those at that first lunch that they organize if they want to. They can put those conversation starters out there and read them. And that could get get everybody going. So that's something we do also to help them.
So great. Oh my gosh. Okay. How can people get a hold of you? Because I have a feeling there's a whole bunch more people who are going to be joining.
Well, you can search on the Ethel Circle on Google and you'll find the Ethel Circle closed Facebook group. And then you just request to join and I'll admit you. It's for women only though. I'll just have to reiterate that. If you like to travel and you're an older woman, just search on the Ethel on the Go on Facebook and you'll find it. And also for more information, we have a vanity URL, aarp.org/Ethels. And that'll take you to information about all things Ethel.
And that's Ethels, plural?
Yes, aarp.org/Ethels. Mm-hmm.
Amazing, amazing. And now I'm happy to promote you. Absolutely, because this is I'm just delighted. Lisa, what would your life have been like if you didn't find the Ethels?
Well, I want to just say that I'm sure I would have survived. I have that strength. I know I can do that. But I have met so many people that have done amazing things and some that haven't done that amazing of things. But it's just fun to hear about other people's lives. And I always say I want to write a book someday because I think that there's so much out there to share. And I'm just glad I can have the opportunity to be with them. If I can say one more thing.
Of course.
Shelley did organize a trip for the Ethels on the Go. And it was a pilot trip. So it was the first one. And I took out a big step in, going solo and signed up for it back in the fall. And I just got back from the trip last week. It was to New York City. It was all things Broadway. And I can't tell you how great it was. There were 20 women that did not know each other, none of them. And when I first walked into the little meeting room, I was probably about maybe one of the last few people to walk in. And it was so noisy. I thought to myself what my dad always says, who's listening? Because they were all talking at the same time. And it just made my heart swell because I thought this is going to be a lot of fun. And by the end, we all made the effort to sit with other people at meals, and at the show, he mixed up our tickets, so we didn't always sit with the same people. And it was so delightful and so refreshing. And, with 20 people, 20 women, you never know what your personalities and dynamics are going to be like. And just like Shelley says, with, 100,000 people in the Ethel Circle, you do occasionally see the negative vibe come through it occasionally, but it's human nature. And I can tell you that I gave my phone number out to everybody on this trip. And I told them, if you're ever in Louisville, please call me. Please come by. I'll show you what I can show you. We'll taste some bourbon together and, just have a good time. And they were all like, okay. So be careful what you wish for. But I really do believe that I'll hear from some of them.
I think you will too. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lisa. And Shelley, is there anything else you wanted to add?
I just wanted to note, following up on what Lisa said, that there was a woman who was going to travel with her friend to Chicago for a girls' trip. And at the last minute, the friend bailed on her. So she decided to go anyway. And she went on the Circle and said, does anybody live in Chicago? I'm flying in. I've never been there before. I'd love to meet somebody for a cup of coffee or a drink. And all these people responded in Chicago. They ended up picking her up at her hotel and driving her around and showing her Chicago. And she posted like a couple days later and said, I had the time of my life thanks to these Ethels that stepped up and took me around Chicago. So it's so supportive. And especially today, at this point in history, when things are so contentious and people are so divided, it's just nice to have a place where women can come together and really support one another and not feel alone. And I just love it.
I love it too. And 2 of my 3 grandmothers were Ethels, and I think I was meant to be part of this community. So I'm coming in.
Good. We would love to have you.
Oh my gosh. Shelley and Lisa, thank you so much. This interview has been delightful. I love the work that you're doing. I love the experiences that you're having. And you're really, really helping other women love their lives more and more and just feel connected and happier. It's such a good thing. Much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Susie.
It's a pleasure.
That's it for today's episode. I hope you got a lot out of it, especially if you or someone you know is experiencing loneliness. Now you know about an amazing group that you can connect with. Okay, now remember, being the queen of your brain domain is the best way to be. If you want to find clarity, confidence, and joy in midlife without wasting any more time feeling stuck, then don't waste another minute. Go ahead and book your free insight and momentum call with me and apply. We'll see if coaching together makes sense for you. Head over to www.talktosuzy.com, and that's Suzy spelled S-U-Z-Y, www.talktosuzy.com. Both Women in the Middle podcasts are all about how to love your life again after 50 with more clarity and intention than ever before. And the focus is on coaching you to incorporate mindfulness as a regular practice. You may want to also check out the Women in the Middle Entrepreneur Show. It's my second podcast where we focus on the reality of running a business after 50. You can find the link in the show notes, and it's also available on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts, including my website. This is how you put yourself on your agenda, and it is about time. Finally, for show notes and links, head over to www.suzyrosenstein.com and click the podcast tab and look for episode 403. Can you believe it? 403. Thanks so much for listening. It's really time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you next week.